I guess we should start with a prayer, right? I can say it.
All right.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this wonderful day. We're grateful for the case study that we're studying right now. We pray that we can expound on it and we can figure out what they could have done better and what we can ourselves can do. And we pray that throughout this week we can learn to do the little things that are important. All this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay. One thing that was so like a synopsis for this case, it's like I had a hard time figuring out like the problem with it. And like
I felt
I
that
don't
way.
know about you, but like I had a hard time writing.
Yeah,
Key
I
stuff.
know that's one of the harder ones.
Uh-huh.
This one, I think it had more to do with having a very successful program, and their partner, the Millennium Partners, was more the issue because they wanted to change things up.
That makes sense.
So it didn't, I think, relatively compared to other case studies, the problem in this one was very minute, very small. And it dealt with the fact that because the market was so competitive, it allowed customers to be able to put in clauses to where they can interject on the process of management. And so normally, I believe the Carl Ritz, I mean, how do you pronounce that? The Ritz-Carlton. The Ritz-Carlton organization wouldn't normally allow a customer to come in and tell them how to run things, but because it was so competitive, they had to allow that.
Okay.
I agree. That's kind of what I focused my paper on too.
I focused my paper, I know this sounds funny, but like on the suggestion of the 4 seasons, I guess. How they wanted to like kind of shorten how they wanted to expand the training time. I put that as my problem. Like, no, they shouldn't. What's the guy? McBride, the main manager, shouldn't like expand the training time because first of all, it's kind of too late. And then I listed off some other reasons.
No, I think what it was is that what's the guy's name? Collins, who worked with Millennium Partners. Collins is the one that wanted to implement a longer training session, and he wanted to do it for the next one that they were starting in Georgetown. So obviously, BC had already was gone and done. McBride was going to be in charge of the 2001 opening of Georgetown, and he wanted to try, and Collins was suggesting doing something different than what they've always done that's been working very well.
That makes sense to me.
And so with them doing so much business with Millennium Partners, there's a lot of pressure on Collins to satisfy. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on McBride to satisfy Collins' demands.
Mm-hmm. it's kind of interesting how Collins made that demand before they even tried it out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That it was like the day when this case study is written, it was the day before the big opening. So it's just kind of weird how he would demand that or suggest that before they don't even know if it works or not. According to McBride, it works. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And Colin doesn't think so.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling like because it was only the two options, the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons, they really just hired them for the name and kind of wanted to run their own show. Millennium Partners did. Because he came in and changed everything about the way, tried to change everything about the way Ritz-Carlton actually sets up a hotel and what they're known for. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There's a question that says, what is the Ritz competitive advantage? That kind of goes off what you suggested, Sarah, because I forgot the Millennium. What were they called?
Millennium Partners.
Yeah, the Millennium Partners kind of did use the Ritz and the Four Seasons because they have like such good service and stuff. It to be like high end. That's kind of why they use the name. And so I think one of the Ritz competitive advantage is that they can give really good high quality service.
Yeah, I think just the name alone brings the clientele that Millennium Partners were wanting. They wanted that high-end customer. And I think just having that name is the draw.
I think that one of the advantages that the Ritz-Carlton has is that they pay attention to the little details. So with the high-end service, really what you're trying to give the person, it kind of depends on what aspect you're talking about. So when you're talking about room service, they talk about how you're going into their house and what it would be like for a visitor to come into somebody's home. So just those small, minute details that they pay attention to, and they're really just they're really good at covering as much of that gap as they can of dissatisfied customers, of trying to make them happy better than anybody else. I think that's their biggest competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's kind of talking about how the Ritz goes, their specific training for 7 days. How do they actually become ladies and gentlemen? So I think it's asking us for how specifically they go over it.
So I was kind of impressed with how they start the whole thing, about how the current employees welcome the trainees and how special they make them feel. Because I think to learn how to treat other people like ladies and gentlemen, you have to know how to be treated that way or have to have felt that. And I think when they start that off at the very beginning, it's going above and beyond with the, treating the new people with all this respect and showing them what it can feel like. I think that it was just a really impressive way to start the whole training process.
It certainly was. I was kind of astounded as I was reading it about how unique and how they went about going about it. I dare to think that a lot of these positions at some point in time could feel very menial. So, you know, if you're just a house cleaning person, if you're just in the kitchen chopping up vegetables, you might not think very highly of your job, but that first day interaction, they made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. And I'm sure that gives them a sense of pride in their job, no matter how mundane it might seem. And that gives them a great competitive advantage, kind of what we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah, I think I really liked that. I think his name is Schultz, when he addressed everybody and said that you know, we're not servants. Our profession is to serve. I think that mindset of not going into your job thinking that you're less than the people that you work for, but you're doing the job that you were hired to do. You know, telling them that, you know, the people that we're serving are ladies and gentlemen, but so are we.
Mm.
I think it gives you more pride in your work. That, you know, you really, even if you are just, you know, cleaning bed or making beds or, you know, vacuuming, that you're doing your profession and you're this good at it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I liked is when McBride talked about the opening, how every employee has like this little, there's no pride, and you can teach them whatever you want, and they really like can't, they really accept your teachings and stuff. And I think that really is true before they're set in their ways with most employment. Like, they really do got this little opening where anyone will listen to like what they're trying to tell them.
Yeah, I thought the whole concept of their 7 days was really more about respect. And once they had that feeling of respect, the training was going to follow.
Mm-hmm. So on day 2, it looks like they give them the philosophy of the business, the how everyone should be thinking. So their departmental vision sessions. So they're basically indoctrinating their employees to the way that they want them to think.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you guys think about days 3 through 7? So this is where they're going over skills training.
Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes really quick.
I think they started really going to the technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how they broke it down. It was very like, at first, it was just kind of basic stuff, you know, them getting a feel for it. And then they slowly got more and more in detail.
Yeah, and I also like that they still kept the whole same feel from the first couple of days with, you know, the warm welcome and the, you know, being a group and still having all that respect at the beginning and the end while they're leaning more towards the training. It wasn't the first 2 days or all this hype and then that was done away with. They kept it throughout.
Mm-hmm. Something I thought was good is they went over a lot of role playing. So they are basically able to make it look like what they're actually going to be able to do without the actual pressure of it. What else? Something that I thought was interesting was their lineup procedure that they used. We do something similar to that in law enforcement, where we have briefings like a half an hour before our scheduled shift, and it just kind of brings everybody together, and you're able to talk about problems that are going on and able to discuss them and work them out there, and just re-emphasize what's most important and before everybody goes out again, because sometimes it's easy to just come into work and kind of get lost in what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think we kind of do that in our office too. I work for a plumbing company, and it's kind of nice to bring that group together and make them remember that they are a group, because they're all out in their own trucks all day long. They're very individual during the day, but they have that time to go over that, kind of discuss problems they're having, and still have that contact with the rest of the company.
That's interesting. So in both your guys' jobs, does like all the employees talk, or is it like usually the leaders that talk? I'm just curious. I worked at Walmart and we kind of had that, but it was just like the group leader would talk, like the main manager, and everyone just kind of would just be like, okay.
In my office, our owner starts the meeting, but he always opens it up for everyone to have time to discuss whatever they need to. And it's only like 15 minutes, but normally they all have a question or they have time to just to kind of chat.
Yeah. Well, it's good because most people have questions.
Yeah, there's definitely open discussion.
Okay. I think just Walmart was really boring, and so everyone would just be like, oh. I know how to put my stuff on the shelf, like, don't worry. But yeah. Oh, one thing I liked about, 3 through 7, I liked how one of the main managers stepped in and helped an employee that was struggling. And like brings everyone up. The manager can either do two things, like tell him that he's doing something wrong, or like help him, and show him like what he's doing wrong. I liked how he it says Schultz. I don't know who that is, but he was Schultz. No, it doesn't really say who he was, but he's one of the big boss, and he helped him out, and I thought that was pretty cool.
So do you guys see any weaknesses in the leadership at Ritz-Carlton?
I thought it was interesting that they pulled, was it like on day 2, they talked to all the managers, and it was like, it's all about money. Like, that was like the very beginning. I just thought that was interesting. So I don't know if that's a problem, but it's definitely.
Yeah, they were a little bit more forceful with the managers. But I didn't have any weaknesses that jumped out. I kind of understood after I reread it, kind of got where Collins was coming from, like, why do you only do this for 7 days and then give them a couple months to catch up? But I think, at least, I don't know if it's just me, but like when I'm in a new job and I'm training, it's one thing to tell someone how to do it, but then to give them the time to actually be hands-on in doing it, you learn. I learn quicker that way when I can actually get in there and do it a few times, instead of just sitting in a room and being told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So how do you guys feel? Do you think that they should extend that 7 days to, like, say 2 weeks?
No.
Or
My
what are your
suggestion
opinions?
was that for this time, they keep the 7 days. It's what works for the Ritz-Carlton. They've had success with it. But that Collins needs to come in and be a participant in the process. He actually needs to be in that training and be one of the people that help.
I think he was on this last one. I could be wrong, but I think I remember reading him in there.
I think it's the same hotel they're talking about.
Yeah,
Because
so this is.
DC Hotel is Georgetown.
You think so?
I think that's what it was. I might have read it wrong, but that's what I was thinking was it was the same one. I don't know. I could be wrong because there are actually 2 Ritz-Carltons in Washington, D.C. One's the Georgetown one and one's just a ways away. So I could be mistaken.
So I guess the question then, if that's what we're going off of, is should the Ritz-Carlton, when working with the Millennium Partners, should they increase their 7-day time period? What are your guys' thoughts?
I think if you increase the time period, you're going to decrease the motivation that the employees will have. That first, working, when you first get a job, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be stoked and super excited. But if you're going to, like, drag it out forever, by the time that they're super well trained, they're just going to be, like, not really that excited for their job.
So you think there's probably like a threshold on role play and things like that?
Mm-hmm. I think there is a threshold. I know there's a threshold.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your thoughts, Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's only so much of that kind of training they can do. I think that if this is their first or second hotel, that Millennium Partners needs to be involved in that and see how it works. And then Collins and McBride need to sit down and make a game plan together, and kind of compromise. Maybe it might not be 2 weeks. Maybe it's 10 days. Maybe there's a little bit more they can do. But yeah, I think, Ritz-Carlton has had a long history of the 7 days working, and Millennium Partners doesn't have any history. So they need to give it a chance.
Yeah. So this was my take on it. It seemed like Collins was most concerned with, he wasn't necessarily concerned with quality. I believe it didn't seem like he raised any concerns of, well, these employees are performing, they aren't performing well. His was more of a loss of money, because if you're only at 50% occupancy for 3 months, or you're building up to that 80% within 3 months, you're losing a lot of money doing that. So I looked at it from this perspective. It cost them $3.5 million. $3.5 million for that 7 days of training. So what would they lose? What are they losing during that 3 months of low occupancy? So, like, say if they increase that 7 days to 2 weeks, that would be approximately another $3.5 million. There's some fixed costs in there, I'm sure, but roughly it would come out to about $3.5 million again. So now your training costs would be $7 million. So how are you going to make that up? Can you just start them off at 80% occupancy after those 2 weeks? Probably not. So you're still even going to have that lag behind there. And what was the numbers that I came up with? It was like around $1.5 million that they were losing by slowing down that occupancy rate. So a loss of $1.5 million compared to a loss of an increased loss of $3.5 million. I think that's pretty significant, and you're really not getting that much more out of it with just another week compared to 3 months of on what I call on the job training. I think on the job training is more important than instructional training. So that's kind of the way I took it. So if I would tell Millennium, this is how I go about it. If I was McBride talking to Collins, I'd say, okay, well, if you want to increase the training, say another week, that's going to cost us another $3.5 million. We're only losing $1.5 million by having a low occupancy rate for 3 months. And that 3 months is basically seen as 3 months of on-the-job training. And that's how I go about it, because Millennium Partners, I doubt that they'd want to lose out on $2 million of revenue.
Yeah. And hearing those numbers, another option would even be, instead of 3 months of low occupancy, let's push it up 2 weeks. You know, maybe once they are on the job training, it can go a little bit faster, and they can cut that down. And then they're not at that $3.5 million, and they're a little bit quicker. That might be something they can look at too. But you're really good at all those numbers things. I didn't go that deep in it.
All right.
So another question I saw kind of I don't know if it got glossed over totally, but Collins had made some comment about how McBride's really good at opening a hotel and getting that going and getting everyone excited and working and the beginning part of it, but how do you maintain it for long term? And I thought that was an interesting question. And I don't know if it's just because he didn't have any experience with Fritz, because from everything I know and have heard, they do maintain that quality long term. Mm-hmm. But how do you maintain that with employees, I guess is the question. And did he have some kind of magic? Because with that low turnover rate, the employees they must love their jobs.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that comes from, so we've talked about the training and how they instilled a lot of pride in them. They gave them really good training at the beginning, so they felt competent in their jobs. And then on top of that, they had that good morning and fond farewell, where before the beginning of their shift, they kind of went over issues and things like that, and a little bit more training. And so I think that's part of the retention rate. I don't know about you guys, but when you feel like you're working with a really good team where everyone's super motivated and everyone works really hard, you want to be there. You want to be, even though you might not be getting paid a ton of money, you really do enjoy your job. Whereas if you're working in another place where people are constantly quitting and there's low morale, I've kind of been in both situations, and you're that low once you start to see a lot of people quitting, it becomes kind of a cyclical thing. It becomes, oh, well, everyone's quitting and like all the good people are leaving. I might as well leave too. So I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. I know that's not really a big in-depth thought into it, but.
No, I thought it was my thought was it's a good sign of a really strong company that values their employees.
I think another thing that I'd forgotten about is that they had a lot of opportunities for advancement in the company. And I think that keeps people around too. That decreases retention rate a lot. Because, if you're just stuck on a low wage forever and you don't see any way out of it within your company, then you're going to go somewhere else to get out of that low wage. So,
yeah. And I think back to that point about the higher ups knowing the jobs of the entry level jobs. I think that's got to help, just because it shows those new people I think it really comes down to a lot of respect. I think you can feel that in a good company, and I think it makes the value of your job better.
Yeah, like if the main managers know that you're doing a good job because they've done that job, it really makes a difference, when you're like working and stuff.
Yeah.
Because if people notice that you're good, it really does make a huge difference.
And I think there's a difference between, I think certain companies try to portray that, but they don't really have that value. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like they try and portray that to their employees, but there's not really that value there.
I think every company tries that. Yeah, they try it. Everyone tries to say that they have the best quality, but in all actuality, they don't employ enough people to have that best quality.
Yeah.
Because when I was working at Walmart, they're like, we have the best quality. And it's like, no, you don't. But they totally tell us, we got to do whatever the customers want and on. But like when you do it, they yell at you because you spent like an hour trying to explain, like a cell phone to them. And then it's like, well, I was doing my job. Anyways. Oh, I like this question. It says, how much more time do you think it would take to get staff ready to handle 80% capacity? Occupancy.
I have a feeling that 3 months is just worked, and so that's the expectation. If they expected it to be 2 months, they could probably do it. Because people work up to that expectation. So I think they might be able to do it a little faster.
I think in terms of in training like they've done for the 7 days, you'd have to do the training for like a whole month. You'd have to be doing role plays the whole entire time and steadily have to get them fast for them to just suddenly jump into an 80% occupancy rate. So, and like we were talking about, that gets very expensive real quick.
And I don't know if they could have the same quality, because even in role playing, you don't get the same kind of experiences that you get with an actual guest.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone with people all day long, and I'm surprised. I've been on the phone with people in different companies for the last 20 years doing customer service, and I am still surprised at some of the comments that come out of people's mouths. So you just never know what's going to come. So I think you can only role play so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it only has so much. There's just sometimes you just have to make mistakes and learn from them. And when you don't have a whole lot going on, it makes it a whole lot easier, I think. So that cost of low occupancy is a lot cheaper than hands-on instruction.
Yeah. And I liked their comment, the Ritz's idea about mistakes, about how they weren't bad to have a mistake. It was a learning situation, and that you can only get better for having them. I thought that was another really good point of view that they had. And I think people learn from their mistakes and aren't going to make the same one next time if it's handled properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what they said is they saw it as a training opportunity, and as there was something else. I can't remember what it was.
I might have it there.
I think it had to deal more with like personal issues, like maybe somebody's making a mistake because of what's going on at home.
Yeah. But I think they also looked at it as like even the company can learn from when an employee makes a mistake because they know how to better train it next time to help it not happen. Something along that line.
All right. Anything else you guys want to go over?
The only other question I see is, did you guys apply this to any of the reading this week?
I hadn't thought about it like that, but this probably answers a lot of questions to other readings that we've had. This seems like almost like the perfect way to run a company. How to manage people, whereas in other case studies that we've gone over, people have messed it up. So
yeah, I thought it was interesting. Even in such a well-run organization, they still have challenges when trying to. I looked at it almost like forming a new team because of this partnership and having to learn how to work with this new team. So that's how I saw it kind of relate to some of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It was really hard for me to write because usually I'm just like, oh, there's this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. But with this case, it was like, there's just a few little things maybe, you know. It seemed like a perfect ideal team to me, so I was like,
Yeah, this one I kind of worked it backwards. I wrote down what the problem was about, he wanted to change the training.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to work backwards and see why it would be a problem to do that.
Yeah.
So I had to go a different way.
It was kind of a what if situation though. Like nothing bad happened yet. So just like, oh, if this happened, then it's like a slippery slope policy.
Well, it must have worked okay because they're still working together.
Mm-hmm.
I Googled it and yeah, they've opened all their hotels and everything. So
yeah, I just Googled it too. It looks like, so in the case study, he was talking about how there was the Ritz-Carlton that they had in the Foggy Bottom area of DC.
Yeah.
And then there was the Ritz-Carlton that they were going to be opening up later on in Georgetown. So I think that's what the two different ones were.
There you go. All right.
Anything else?
I think we've covered all of it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Good. All right. I'll just.
You have the link, Dustin?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Well, thanks. See you next week.
All right.
I'll send you guys an email or something of the, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Podcast.
Okay.
All right,
See you guys later.